The life you want cannot coexist with the identity that's been running your world for the last 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. But you know this already. You feel it. You feel the tug of the next chapter. And you also feel the weight of the old one, the weight of who you had to be, the roles you played, the version of yourself you performed so everything around you could stay intact. And here's what nobody tells you about that tension. It doesn't go away by working harder or waiting longer. It goes away when you're willing to do the one thing most people avoid because it's uncomfortable and inconvenient and brutally honest. The old you has to die. And I know that sounds harsh, so stay with me, because this might be the most honest thing anyone has said to you in a while. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you 5 concrete steps to actually begin this process, because naming the problem without a path forward isn't fair to you. Now, here is what most people don't talk about when they talk about starting over. You cannot build a new life from the same identity that got you through the last one, because survival requires a completely different version of you than rebuilding does. The woman who kept everything together, who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who swallowed what she wanted because the timing was never right, she was capable and she was strong and she absolutely got you here. But she is not built for what's next. She was built for what was. Now, I want to be careful here because I don't want you to hear this as an indictment of who you've been. The old you is not the villain of your story. She did exactly what she was supposed to do. She held the job, the family, the appearances, the sanity all at once, and she held it together. That is not nothing. But there comes a point where those same coping mechanisms that kept you safe start keeping you small. The same patterns that helped you survive start blocking you from actually living. And that is the tension you're feeling right now. That pull, that restlessness, that sense that the version of you that got you here is starting to feel like a costume that no longer fits. That's not confusion. And although it can feel like it at times, it's also not depression. That is evolution. And it is uncomfortable on purpose, or you wouldn't notice it. Now, let me describe what that actually feels like from the inside, because I've lived this and I've watched dozens of women move through it. Things that used to satisfy you feel hollow now. Relationships you've had for years feel like they're pulling you backwards instead of forward. You're grieving something you can't even name. You feel restless even on the good days. You've started to have thoughts you're afraid to say out loud because they would change everything. When I was running my business in the invention space, I spent a decade helping people bring new products to life. And what I kept seeing over and over was that they weren't just building products. We were watching people build new identities. They would come in with an idea and leave having completely rewritten what they believed was possible for themselves. I was watching reinvention happen in real time. And I kept pushing it aside because I was busy being the version of me that was succeeding. But there was a season after my daughter left for college and the house went quiet for the first time in 2 decades. And what I saw was a woman who was very good at building things for other people and still afraid to build the things she actually wanted for herself. That is the moment the old version of you starts to crack. And the crack is not the problem. The crack is the beginning. Now, here's what I will not do. I will not pretend that this is pretty. It is not. It is not a new journal or a vision board. It is losing relationships you thought were permanent. It is walking away from a version of yourself people admired and depended on. It is disappointing people who benefited from your silence. It is lonely before it is liberating. And nobody is going to hand you a trophy for doing it. When I closed my business intentionally to build this one, there were people who didn't understand it. They saw it as me walking away from something that was working, and in some ways I was. But I had reached a place where staying would cost me more than leaving. And that is a calculation only you can make for yourself. No one else can weigh that for you. The messy part is that most people never get there. They keep dragging the old version of themselves into a new season and then wonder why the new season feels exactly like the last one. New address, same patterns. New relationships, same dynamics. New job, same ceiling. The identity has to change. That is the work. So if you're ready to actually begin this, there are 5 things I want you to do. 1, tell the truth about what isn't working. And I don't mean the polished version that you're going to tell your friends over drinks, but the real list. Write it down, all of it, and don't stop until there's nothing left to say. 2, name the version of you that got you here. Who did you have to become to survive that last chapter? Name her specifically, because you can't release what you haven't identified. She kept you safe. She is also the one keeping you stuck. You can honor her and still let her go. 3, stop negotiating with things that drain you. You already know what they are. The relationship, the commitment, the habit, the story you keep telling yourself. If it is costing you your peace consistently, then it is too expensive. Full stop. 4, create physical space to think. You cannot reset in the middle of the mess and the chaos that needs resetting. Get out of your environment for a day. Go to a coffee shop or a hotel lobby. Take a long drive somewhere quiet. You need distance from your current life to be able to see it clearly. And then write out what you actually want. Not what makes sense, not what's responsible, but what you want. 5, take the smallest courageous step, not the biggest one. Just the one you can do tomorrow and then the day after that, because this new life is not built in a single sweeping moment. It is built in the quiet, consistent choices that the old version of you would have talked yourself out of. That is how the version of you actually dies. It starts with one intentional decision to stop dragging her into a season she was never meant to survive. Now, if this is landing for you and you want to go deeper, the reset guide link below is a good place to start putting some of this on paper. It will walk you through the first honest questions, the ones most people skip because they are afraid of what they might find. And if you want to keep going, the next video in the series is called What Do I Want? It picks up exactly where this one leaves off, because once you've named what isn't working, that's the question that comes next. I'll see you there.